today. We're sitting very close to that all-time high. In fact, around 250 points away from 33,233. Are we going to see that level breached today?
Eleni, if those numbers come out of the States as expected, above 102,000, we could see a further bounce in the market. The market has, however, run very hard this week. Of our resources, so investors really remain cautious to enter at these specific levels. But if you've entered earlier in the week, investors are hoping for a little bit more this afternoon to possibly take some profits, or maybe hold over the weekend, depending on what the numbers look like this afternoon.
To what extent is this rally being driven by the fact that resource commodity prices doing quite well, and the fact that that is coupled with a much weaker rand? When you look at the underlying gold price, it is down around 0.5%, but the gold mining index is rallying over 2% today.
Correct, Eleni. When we saw the rand break the 720 support level, we see a lot of buying coming in for our resource stocks, and we are a resource-based economy, so we are getting the benefit of that, and we've seen that our markets bucking the trend compared to international markets with this massive rally over the last couple of days.
Yolanda, let's touch on the US unemployment scenario that could play out today. We're sitting with an unemployment rate of 9.4%. The dollar is strengthening on the back of this, and usually we do see dollar strength despite the fact that sometimes we do see positive sentiment surrounding unemployment. ADP numbers a little early out in the week, perhaps this signaling that we could see a positive number coming through on the non-farm payrolls front today.
Correct, Eleni. We're seeing a little bit of dollar strength today based on the fact we're seeing euro weakness. In terms of the numbers, we are seeing that we did see that rate come down to 9.4. The non-farm payrolls are an indication of the state of the labor market in the US. So those numbers have to get better. We need to see a bigger number, and I think market expectation is for 135,000. So we need to see that trend continuing, and we will likely see further dollar strength coming through.
Let's touch on Sasol out with the trading updates. For the 6 months to the end of December, they expect headline earnings per share to increase by as much as 27%. And this is a combination of cost cutting, margins looking far better, and also the fact that underlying crude prices have also fared much better. And the rand, even though it has been strong, has started abating somewhat.
Correct, Eleni. When one looks at the trading statement, it is, however, slightly below our expectations in terms of the earnings for FY10. However, the Sasol has been rallying on the crude. The crude expectation in terms of delivery out of Egypt, the possible delivery constraints that we're having coming out of there, and we're seeing a weaker rand over the last short period. So all those factors really helping Sasol. So we're seeing risk to the upside for Sasol until the Egypt scenario has been sorted.
Well, definitely. I mean, it's being reflected in its share price today. It's up over 3%, and yesterday it gained 2.35%. So it'll be interesting to see how that company closes today. But Standard Bank on the negative front, coming under pressure, down around 1.5%. In fact, a lot of the banks shedding some ground in today's session, Yolanda, particularly with Standard Bank. We heard that it is going to be selling its stake in its Russian operations as well. Is this going to be taken up negatively by the investor community, or do you think it's a move towards perhaps better days ahead, given the fact that they are going to be relooking their agenda on the continent?
Eleni, it looks like investors are very, very worried about Standard Bank. In terms of the fact that all their businesses outside of Africa have come under pressure, and we're seeing the Russia. There's speculation they could be selling. That they could look at closing some of their Brazilian operations, and it looks like the strategy is changing to focus in Africa. They have done a lot. They've cut in terms of employees, they are reducing their costs. I think it's positive for Standard Bank. They are cleaning house. They're looking to free capital with the Russia sale. I think for the stock long term, it will be positive. However, investors still quite negative on Standard Bank, and we should see the results. The banking results should start coming out later in the month, and I think Standard Bank is out in March. So I think very interesting, but positive for the stock in the long term.
Yolanda, let's throw ahead into next week as well. And we know that tensions are still rising in Egypt. A lot of concern as to whether President Hosni Mubarak is going to step down. We know that they are currently in talks with Washington for various scenarios that could play out as well. It seems that the equity markets have largely ignored this. Going into next week, what are your sentiments with regards to investment opportunities and whether you think we could see a correction? Some are calling a correction into the next 2 weeks.
Eleni, markets are at recent highs, so the risk to the downside is greater, but the liquidity factor is still far more important, and we have seen, if we continue to see a weaker rand going forward, we will see resources performing better and markets really trending higher. So entering at these particular levels, I advise investors to be cautious, stick with your stop losses if we do see a pullback, but the risks are high from a downside, especially if we see Egypt being resolved. It's however unlikely to resolve in the next, well, we hope it will be resolved soon, but in terms of how it gets resolved, one will have to see whether Mubarak actually does step down, what happens within an interim government if it does go through.